Hey everyone, this is Tony Brown, your instructor for CCT 121, and today we'll be going over the first two exercises in Lab 3, for Chapter 3 for data acquisition. First exercise is preparing a target drive for acquisition in Linux, and the second topic we'll be going over is acquiring data with DD in Linux. All right. So there's a couple of important points I need for you all to pay attention to because Linux is a totally different animal from Windows. If you've never experienced Linux box or the command prompt, this is going to be new for you, and you may get frustrated depending on what the commands are. One big thing to point out is sometimes you will have to put a 1 and a capital I or a lowercase l at the end of some of these commands. Normally it's going to be an L, and there's also no spaces. Once they type something out here on your left hand of your screen, it needs to be exactly like it's typed. If you miss one word or if you miss one letter, it's going to throw you an error. It has to be exact. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with preparing a target drive for acquisition in Linux. First thing, make sure your PLAB K server 01 is powered on and make sure that you are connected to it. There's another one you can connect to, which is PLAB Def T01. We do not want that one. We want the one that looks like Kali Linux, and you'll see those words up under the box. Looks like a little dragon or something at the very top. All right, so make sure on other, which is correct. Your username is going to be root. And then here goes one of the first issues with logging on to Kali Linux. Your password is capital PASSW0RD. That is not a capital O, and password has to be exact. So if we scroll down here under task, it says root under username. It also says password just like this. Again, it's capital P ASSW0RD. If you spell it incorrectly, like I'm going to put a lowercase 0 in D, it's going to look like this. Hey, authentication failure. You have to have it correct. Root, and it is case sensitive. Unlike Windows, Windows sometimes is not case sensitive. Kali Linux is case sensitive. So past W0RD, hit login, and now you're in the Kali Linux box. If you've heard anything about Kali Linux, it is a very powerful operating system, and it by default comes with a bunch of penetration testing tools. This is a powerful box. You can get a copy of it online for absolutely free. I just caution you, if you are here on campus, if you try to get to the Kali Linux website, it will not allow you on. All right, so that's the first part. We need to go here. Next, we need to go to our command prompt. So under applications and places, we want to click on terminal. This is where we have to use our command line. With Kali Linux or any other type of Linux programs, we have to use the command line in order to get anything to work. Sometimes you can use my computer, but mostly we're going to be in the command prompt. So if you're going to continue on in cybersecurity, I would definitely get used to using the command prompt. We also have a class NOS 120, which is Red Hat Linux. It uses similar commands. So if you know one operating system in Linux, you essentially know all of them because they're all built on the same platform. So from here, what we want to do is we want to go to the partition. In order to get the partition, we have to type in gpartition ed. Hit enter. You're going to see a screen that looks like this. All right. Next, it says to look at the information from dev SDA1. Now, the way drives works in Linux, if you're in a Windows box, you put the hard drive in to your computer. Then you format that drive by right-clicking on it, I believe, or going into properties, and you can format it. And you can format it in NTFS format, which allows for big, huge gigabytes worth of information. Or you can format it in FAT32, which only allows for, I believe, a total of 2 or either 4 gigabytes total of information. For our Kali Linux, we're going to format it in FAT32 so we can read it. Then it's going to cut it up into different sections, or we're just going to cut that hard drive up into different sections so we can read it. All right. It's going to happen a little later on once we go to DD. It's going to create, again, different drives for, I think it's 198 gigabytes worth of computer information. So first thing we want to do is we want to change it to our second drive. Right now we've got two in here, SDA1, which is 25 gigabytes, and SDA, which is 25 gigabytes, and SDB, which is 20 gigabytes. That SDB is that hard drive that we're going to copy and get all the information from. So we're going to click on SDB. Then what we want to do is we want to unmount it. We want to virtually take it off of this operating system and off of the actual system unit by unmounting it. You don't have to turn the computer off and physically unhook anything. You just use the unmount command on our screens. So we'll right click here, click on unmount, and that's going to unmount it. Now, next we want to delete it. Again, there's nothing on here right now because it's just an empty drive. We're going to format it so we can use it later on. All right, so we hit delete. Next, everything is unallocated. So if you're in your Windows box and go into My Computer, go into Administrative Tools, then click on, I believe it's Disk or either Computer Management. You'll be able to see the disk drives. You may see some unallocated space on your hard drive. What that means is you've got a bunch of space on there that does not have a drive letter. You can easily go in and change those drive letters by right-clicking on the unallocated space and then make new drive. That's the same exact thing that we're doing here. We're formatting it. That's all you're doing is formatting it. All right. So on the unallocated, right-click on New. And then it says, okay, this very top part, we're going to leave that like it is. Under New Size, aka Megabytes, we're going to change that to 4096. And then we're going to change the file system. Again, we're used to using NTFS. Excuse me, since this is a Linux box, there is no NTFS. Oh, actually, this is right here. We don't want to use that one. We want to use FAT32. All right. Next, we want to use Windows. So next we want to type in Windows for the label. So we type that in, and then we simply click Add. Everything else, leave it like it is. All right, once that's done, we've got a new partition that's FAT32 on Windows, and it's only 4 gigabytes, which means we have unallocated space of 16 gigabytes because the total size of that hard drive is 20 gigabytes. All right, so now it's added. So now let's save changes by clicking on that Apply All Operations. You sure you want to apply? Yes, we do. It's going to keep working. Then we hit Close. All right. So now that's been done. So now what we want to do is close the gparted window, which is going to put us back here to terminal window. All right. Now what we want to do is mount the disk volume, and this is where we run into the majority of problems. Right now, in order to mount that disk, we have to use fdisk and -L. Some people look at this as 1. Some people look at this as I. That is a lowercase l. So fdisk space dash and L. Make sure that that dash and L is not separated by space. Leave it with no spaces. Hit enter. You're going to see everything that's on these two drives. You're going to see the device boot, which is SDB1. That's the one we just created. And then you'll see SDB1. Then you'll see SDA with 3 different drives on it. Okay. Now we named our device SDB1. And remember the start blocks, end blocks is right here. And again, it's only FAT32, so it's only I believe 2 gigabytes right now. So now what we want to do is we want to make a directory so we can actually mount this thing. So we need to make a directory for mnt/SDB1. So mkdir, that's how you make a directory inside of the command prompt. Space /mnt/SDB1. Hit enter. You don't see anything, but we know it works. Next, what we want to do is go to LeafPad. And that's going to be a GUI system. So click on File and Open. Next, it says to go to File System, double click on the etc folder. Next, we need to find a file called fstab. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a folder called sftab.d. That is not the folder that you want. If you look in this red section, it says, please be aware that the fstab file is not located in the folder fstab.d and instead found at the bottom of the etc folder. So we're in the etc folder, so let's scroll all the way down. Look in your F section, and you'll see fstab. So click that and open. And here we go. Now we need to type in a specific command in here, which looks like this: dev sdb1, that's a tab after that, mount sdb1 vfat default 0 and 0. So now after you type every section, which we're going to start with the / and dev /sdb1, and then hit tab /mnt /sdb1 tab vfat tab defaults tab 0 tab 0. So your screen should look just like mine once you're done. See if I can extend this out a little bit. There we go. So it should look just like this: SDB1, MNT, SDB1, VFAT, defaults 0 and 0. Once you're done with this, let's click on File and Save. We can exit out of this. Next, under your command prompt, let's type in clear to clear out that screen. Clear. And let's go to gparted again. And let's go to SDB drive, like so. And now you'll see before we just had a partition to SDB1, but now it's been put on the SDB1 folder. All right, so now we can mount it. So let's right click on it and click on mount. We want to mount on our SDB1. Once it is mounted, you'll see a little key that goes to the side of the partition SDB1 and right before the green and the FAT32. All right, once you see that, let's click on the close on gparted. Go back to the terminal window. And now, let's keep this window open for our next activity. Now we're going to actually split that disk. So we hit next. All right, so now we start talking about acquiring data with DD in Linux. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make an image of an NTFS disk on FAT32 by using the DD command. Essentially what we did in chapters 1, where we took the information from a USB drive and looked at it, what we've got to do is we've got to copy that NTFS folder, which is about 20 megabytes. We've got to copy it down to FAT32 so we can see what's on it. Remember, whenever you're working with evidence, you always want to make a copy of the original folder. All right. So now let's get it started. Let's type in fdisk space -L. And again, that's going to show you everything again. All right, so now we need to change that directory to that MNT /SDB1. So CD /MNT/SDB1. If you don't put in that / before MNT, it's going to put you in a totally different folder, or it may throw you an error. Once you're in the right folder, it will turn blue, as we can see here, towards the end of your command line. All right, so now what we need to see is what all is in here. So let's type in ls -al, and you'll see two directories, one from January 1st and one for August 29th. Yours may be a little different depending on your dates may be a little different depending on how your system is. But if you've got a total of 8 files, but you've got two directories, that's what you want. All right, so now since we've got this case that we're working on, this is our very first case. So now we want to make a directory called case1. So mkdir case01. Again, if you're working for an agency, you're going to have a specific number for that specific case. So you'll put that in instead of case 01. I still put in the first words of case, but I would put in the actual case number for everything else. So hit enter. All right. So now, since we've made that case folder, now we need to do a change directory. Like so. And that's inside of SDB1. Now what we want to do is we want to perform a raw format image of the entire suspect drive to the target directory. What we have to do is split the command with the DD command. Split command creates a 2-letter extension for each segment and volume. If you remember for Windows, if you've ever looked at those drives, there's always one drive letter, A through Z. For Linux, you can have 2 drive letters, so that gives you more space to work with. Infinitely more space to work with, or more drives that you can have. All right, so as a general rule, if you plan to use a Windows forensics tool to examine a DD image file created with this switch, the segment and volume shouldn't exceed 2 gigabytes each because of the FAT32 size limits. This 2 gigabyte limit allows you to copy up to 198 gigabytes of a suspect's disk. If you need to use the DD command, it's better to use the split command's default of incremented letter extensions to make smaller segments. So if you make smaller segments of this master disk drive, you can read the information more quickly. It's much easier to read 2 gigabytes of information than it is to read 200 gigabytes of information. All right. So now, also look down at the bottom. It says copying and pasting the above via clipboard may not carry over the hyphens in the split -B and a gzip -C. So you may be better off typing out the whole thing. I like to type everything out instead of using copy and paste because, again, it doesn't always work. So let's get this started. So DD equals, now hold on a minute, go back to that. There we go. DD equals, DD space if equals dev SDB1 sync no error space BS equals 64K. Give me a space and a pipe. That pipe is shift and the key above enter. That's the pipe. Can't be a backspace, can't be a forward space. Right above enter, shift and the pipe button. gzip -C space another pipe space split B space All right, so if we're looking at this, this says to make a system drive backup make a system drive backup with the extension of DD from anything that's in the SDB1 mount. All right, so we're going to hit enter. And I spelled something incorrectly, so let me go back and look at this again. Oh, I got a space here between sync and no error. Now, there you go. So once you get rid of that, again, that's why everything has to be exact, and it is case sensitive. If you miss one thing like that space that I just missed, you may get an error. Once you close everything up, it'll sit here for about a minute or two. So that does not mean that it's broke. Just give it a couple of minutes because what it's doing is it's taking that 200 gigabyte folder and splitting it up into multiple, I believe, 4 giga or 2 gigabyte sections. All right, so once everything's complete, you should see this where you've got these records in, you've got 3 of these records out, and then it'll tell you that 4.3 gigabytes have been copied and gives you some other information. All right, so we can close this out. Now let's look at the information that was just created. Let's double click on my computer, double click on file system, scroll all the way to the very bottom under that section. You'll see the system drive, which one is that? System drive backup underscore image.gz. Yours may have actually it does have a double A on it. So we're going to right click on that and cut it. And then we're going to paste it under the mount folder. So let's scroll up a little bit. Go under the mount, SDB1 and CaseO1 folder, and right click and paste. And now it's moving. And again, it is a compressed folder. I believe one of the questions for your review at the end of this lab is going to be, how much can things compress? It'll be 50%, which is 0.5 or 0.50. See 0.50, that is the answer for it. All right. So now we can unmount that folder, or we can unmount that drive. So let's click here. Let's open up gparted again. So let's go to our command prompt. Type in gparted. Go to SDB. Right click on that mount and unmount it. Once we're done with that, let's close it. Let's close your terminal window. All right. So at this point, that is done with the that's done with the exercises. Now you have the labs. The labs are going to be exactly like these exercises was. What they want you to do now is try to do the labs without looking at the exercises. It's the same exact directions. If you need help, reference back to those exercises. Type those commands in. If you're looking at these labs, as you click, you can go backwards and you can go forwards. And your GUI screen doesn't change. It's 3, 2, 1. So if you're on lab 4 on page number 5, and it says to create a disk or DD, create a copy using DD. If you can't remember the commands, simply go back to page number 3. And that will show you the commands. If you go through this step by step, that will help you to work on this next project. All right. So from here, it says to go to this server and click on reset. And click on continue. And now it's going to reset that box back to nothing. And then you can go on to your exercises. Again, those exercises or the hands-on projects will be just like the exercises we just completed. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'm here for you. You can email me, give me a call. But If you email me or either hit me on Teams, I'll probably answer pretty quickly. All right. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.